Tonight on Legislative Review. A ban on weapons in public spaces. Plus, boosting local school funding. And background checks for workers in childcare and senior care. From Olympia, this is Legislative Review. Welcome and thanks for watching Legislative Review. I'm Angela Nolasco. Sparking a contentious debate on the Senate floor Wednesday afternoon was a bill concerning weapons in public spaces. Senate Bill 5098 aims to restrict the possession of weapons in areas where children and families are likely to be present, like public buildings, parks, playgrounds, sports fields, performing arts centers, and county fairs. The bill exempts law enforcement, those who have a valid concealed pistol license, and activities with ceremonial events like military rifle honors. Democratic Senator Javier Valdez sponsored the bill, which follows previous legislation he backed in 2024 that prohibits firearms in libraries, zoos, aquariums, and transit centers.
In my hometown of Moses Lake, there was a shooting at the Grant County Fairgrounds where an argument escalated, which resulted in a 15-year-old boy and a 12-year-old girl being shot. Over 90% of mass shootings include 6 or more fatalities since 1996 that have occurred in locations where civilian firearms were permitted.
Supporters say it would reduce the risk of violence and mass shootings and keep vulnerable youth safe, but gun rights advocates disagree, claiming it infringes on the rights of law-abiding gun owners who don't use their firearms for gun crimes. Speaking to oppose the bill, Republican Senator Leonard Christian.
We still have crime with guns. Schools in the state have long since been gun-free zones. It's very clear. But yet, just south of my district, we had a gun shooting in school in a gun-free zone. This bill just adds more confusion, and it doesn't protect anyone.
The Senate took a floor vote.
Mr. President, there are 28 ayes, 21 nay.
Having received constitutional majority and gross second substitute, Senate Bill 5098 is declared passed. The title of the bill will be the title of the act.
The bill passed and moves on to the House of Representatives to be further reviewed. A new proposal to boost funding for local schools was debated on the Senate floor Thursday morning. The bill, Senate Bill 5192, seeks to help districts cover rising costs for basic needs like classroom materials and school operations by increasing the amount of money each school receives per student. Advocates say that currently schools are struggling to keep up with the rising costs of materials and supplies, while state funding has not. The bill will increase funding for materials, supplies, and operating costs, or MSOC as it's called, from the current amount to over $1,600 per student. For high school students, that number goes up by an additional $225, covering everything from textbooks and technology to utilities and insurance. The new funding would also be tied to inflation and enrollment, making sure schools aren't penalized for year-to-year changes in student numbers. The bill was amended for transparency, meaning if passed, schools will be required to report how and where they spend the funds. Proponents say some districts have reported millions of dollars in gaps over recent years, money that could have been used for mental health support and student services. Democratic Senator Tawana Noble sponsored the bill.
This has forced school districts to stretch their budgets and rely heavily on local levies, which we know is a problem to have schools utilize their local levies to cover the basic cost of education. It also smooths out student enrollment changes to provide more predictable funding for districts, Mr. President, and it gives districts the flexibility to address their most pressing needs while maintaining strong accountability, which is what we all want to see, Mr. President.
Opponents, however, argue that it won't do enough to address fixed costs, like insurance premiums, which continue to rise regardless of student enrollment. Although expressing their overall support for the bill, some Republican senators spoke about their concerns.
I am not convinced, even with the amendment, I appreciate the amendment, that this money is going to go for what we think it's going to go, what we want it to go for. It happens over and over and over again in our state. We put down money for a specific purpose, and it doesn't go to that purpose. And I want to be clear, we should and we do pay our teachers well. We're one of the best, by one study, the best in the country. We should be very proud of that. But we also got to make sure we pay the rest of the bill.
The Senate voted on the bill.
Mr. President, there are 47 yea, 2 nay.
Having received a constitutional majority and gross substitute Senate Bill 5192 is declared passed. The title of the bill will be the title of the act.
The bill passed and heads to the House of Representatives for further review. In the House, a bill proposing significant changes to background checks for workers in certain high-risk positions. House Bill 1490 seeks to strengthen protections for vulnerable populations like children, the elderly, and those with disabilities by ensuring that workers with unsupervised access to them undergo a thorough fingerprint-based background check. This would apply to those in long-term care facilities, childcare centers, and facilities for youth with developmental disabilities, such as the Lake Burien Transitional Care Facility. The goal is to identify any criminal history or risks that could compromise the safety of vulnerable individuals. Supporters say it's about preserving public trust in those who care for at-risk populations and will make Washington state compliant with federal rules. Because without it, the state will lose access to critical FBI databases that verify criminal histories. Democratic Representative Edwin Obras is the bill's prime sponsor.
This is about protecting vulnerable populations by ensuring thorough background checks for those working in critical care facilities. It is a straightforward update to strengthen our system and maintain trust in Washington's licensing and hiring practices.
The bill has bipartisan support. Speaking in favor, Republican Representative Brian Burnett.
The background check, specifically to character, competence, and suitability for the job for unsupervised positions. This is really, really important. I think this is a good bill, and I just ask your support. Thank you.
The House took a floor vote.
The Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 97 yeas, 0 nays, 1 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, substitute House Bill 1490 is declared passed.
House Bill 1490 passed on a unanimous vote and is headed to the Senate to be deliberated. And that's a wrap for this episode of Legislative Review. Join us nightly at 8 and 11 to keep up with what's happening in the state legislature.